this webinar. That way, if we can get that recording, we can post it online for you if you ever want to watch this video again. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the settings in form selection, and that option is under your options and then form selection. You'll get a window like this, and basically if you're setting up your form selection settings, you'd have to do it for each module. What I mean by that is, say for example you're working with T1 TP1 2016, you would set your settings here. If you're working for T2s 2014 2016, you would do your settings here, and same with T3 and FX. So each one you would have to set. It's a good idea to probably set this before the season, that way you have everything set when you're doing your returns, and you wouldn't have to worry about it throughout the season. You'd also have to do it for each year, so 2015, 2014 T1, 2013, and so on, and that again is according to which returns you do most commonly, and also the drop down for the T2, you'd have to do it for the 2013, 2016. So each module in each year you would have to create settings for. That applies for T3 and FX. So let's just take the T1 as an example. And under the T1 2016, you have the section for print job. And this would apply for your T1 paper, your TP1 paper, your T1 early business, T1 e-file, TP1 EDI, and T1 review. So you'd have to set for each one. So for example, if you're setting for T1 paper, you would set your status after printing, take a snapshot, would take a snapshot of the return and any variances that are made after you've printed the return. ProFile will actually be able to record that within the snapshot variance. Change the status. So for example, if you print the return and you want the status to change, you can set it here. Some people may set it to after they print, they have it as printed. And again, this is according to your preference. Print sent names, these are meant for your columns here. So you have your file, a section for your client, or a printout for your client, a printout for your CRA. And if you want to create an extra column, just in case, you can create an extra customized column, and that will be for whichever printout you want to do it for. And you have 5 columns to work with. Print tips, and then we can go into the form selection details, and this enables you to take control of if you want to keep it as a file for yourself. How do you want to print it off? Do you want to print it off in physical paper or a physical printer? Do you want to archive it to PDF, or do you want to create a PDF so that you can email it out? So that again is according to your preference. You can do the duplexing of sets. You can set it to have the review marks 4 per page, and then you have control of your language. If you're looking for the form, you could use this field here, T2125. I usually like to use to demo, and it will bring up that form automatically after you type it in. This section here enables you to take control of which forms you want to set within your print jobs or print columns, and that enables you to take control of that when you're printing them off. Once you have your preferences set here, then you can press OK. The carry forward feature enables you to, say for example, you've been working with ProFile for so many years, you like your settings from 2015. If you want to carry forward those settings from 2015, you can use this carry forward feature here. Set defaults. In case you made so many changes within this form selection section and you want to put it back to default so that you can start from scratch, you can use this set default, cancel, and then help. Okay. So I've set my settings 2016, and now and I've done it for T1 paper, and now I want to print off a return. I've finished off a return and I want to print it off. You would have to go under File, Print, and this is where your the settings that you've set will be seen. So let me just put T1 paper. So I have the 4 columns that I created one for file, for the customer, and for CRA, and then I created a customized one for T1 paper. And just remember, if you're making a change out in the form selection, just take note of where you made those settings for. Okay, so T1 paper 2016, I had set it for these 4 columns with an email these PDF. Okay, let's go back to print, file, print, and now I have those settings set here. Let me go back to T1 paper, and here they are. Now you'll have the forms that that are printable in accordance to your return. So if it's a form that is not activated within your return, it won't show in here. In case you do want to print it off, if it's not on the list of it being highlighted and you prefer to add it to the list, you could always go to the column that you want to print off and just click on the highlight. For example, for my files, I want to include that 2125, and I would go look for the T2125, and then I would add that in. It looks like it's not included in here as one of my T2125. Just see here, T16. You see the all right, so it's not activated. That's probably the reason why it's not available. Okay. So you'd select your, let me go back to Simplified. Allow multiple jobs allows you to print not just T1 paper. You could do multiple jobs where T1 paper and T1 e-file, for example, or if you don't want to do multiple jobs, you can just uncheck this and just pick the single one that you want to do. In this case, I just want to do the T1 paper. Again, you have the option for after printing, take a snapshot, status change. Again, this is according to your preference. Option section, keep the selections. So if you make any changes here, it will keep those selections. Like for example, if I wanted to add in the on-ben, it would keep the selection that I made for the CRA and on-ben. Print all pages, odd pages, even pages. You have the option there. Date in the heading, so when you print it off, there's going to be a date in the heading. Default printer, so it'll print off to your default printer. Merge print sets if you have multiple jobs, and show only selected. There's again tips, and this here is for your simplified versus advanced. This is your simplified version or simplified view, and this enables you to look at T1 paper filing standard, and the forms are available to be printed. If you prefer not to print off, say for example, the client letter, you could just uncheck it, and then when you print, the client letter won't show. If you decide to just print off for CRA, you can uncheck those two, and when you print, it will print off the T1 condense and the on-ben, because I chose on-ben. Okay. If you prefer the advanced view, then you could just click on Advanced, and it's going to give you this view here, which is going to show all your forms that are available, and you can select and add that in. Okay, and then you have your print. Your setup is going to enable you to do your print setup. So I'm going to go into that next. Set defaults. Say, for example, you made changes and you prefer to start from scratch. You could use the set defaults and recreate your settings here. Then you have your cancel and your help. You can access the print setup from here by selecting setup, and you have your print setup for 2016 T1 TP1. You could also access these same settings under your File, Print Setup, and this will give you more options in accordance to the modules. So if you prefer to set your print setups or print settings before the season, you can go here and then select your module, T1, T2, T3, and your FX, and then again it's in accordance to each year and each module. So if you want to make a change to a 2014, for example, you would have to do the drop down, make the change to 2014 T1 TP1, and then that would be saved for the 2014 T1 TP1. Same with the T2. You have these options here for the drop down and your T3 and FX. Going back to the 2016 T1 TP1, I want to set it according to my default Windows printer. So ProFile will find what your default Windows printer is and use that printer. Now that settings is within your operating system, and you can go to the control panel under the printer and settings, and you can set your default Windows printer. If you prefer not to use your default Windows printer, you can unselect this, and you can select the categories here. It gives you the flexibility to pick your printer in accordance to the category. For example, T1 jacket, I prefer to have that for, I would put it to, say, the printer that I prefer. I don't have too many available here, but say, for example, this was a physical printer here, and I wanted to go to that printer. My TP1 jacket, I prefer it to be going to another printer. T1 forms, I prefer to go to this network printer, and so on and so forth. So it gives you the flexibility to let ProFile know for this specific category, I want it to print at this printer. The bins will go according to your printer's bins, so you can set that. If you want to change, so you also have these options here for your letters, your invoice, your T7 DRA, and your labels, and you can change those accordingly. And we just change those back, and if you want to change your settings in the default printer, you could do it two ways. You can go through the control panel. There's extra steps to that, or you can go directly to the properties here, which is available through this window. Just click on ProFile, and then you'll have the option for the printer properties. Let me see if I can do it with the XPS. Properties, okay, it doesn't give you too many options, but if this was a physical printer, you would have more options to work with according to the layout, the bin, how it's being printed, whether it's back-to-back, like duplexing, 4 on a page, 2 on a page, and so on, whether it's portrait, landscape, and so it gives you those particular options to set if you prefer to set it on the physical printer. Just going to cancel that for now. But most people use the default printer, and they would just select always use default Windows printer, and that means that all these categories will use your default Windows printer. If you want to set the margins, you have the ability to set the margins in this window here, in this section. Margins can be controlled here. Your font scaling, so sometimes you want to fit certain forms within a page. You may have to adjust it accordingly to font scaling. So you can get ProFile to do it automatically, or you can set it manually by clicking on Manual and then taking control of the percentage. You could also put it to none, where it's not going to do the font scaling. But sometimes you want ProFile to do it automatically, so that those forms that are unusual will automatically be set according to the font scaling. You have your sections for the graphs, so when you print out and there's graphs within your return, you can have it as black and white, full color, or pattern color. Positioning and duplex, so you can control it here. You can print it as a booklet. You have your center horizontally. Size to fit page is a good option. By default, you'll have these two options here. If you want to use the printer's duplex setting, then you can use, just click on to this setting here, or if you want to, you also have the option to allow duplex form merging, so you can set that here, or flip the pages up. So that will flip the page over and it will be reversed up if you prefer that type of setting. And then you have this section here for options for all modules. And so if you have the font scaling set, it's going to confirm. ProFile will have a message come up, and it's going to ask you to confirm whether you'd like ProFile to make those font scale changes. So that's a good option to have checked. Once you've made all your changes here for the module and the years, then you can press OK. Right. So now from there, so you have your settings set. You can go back to File, Print, and if your return is ready to be printed, then you can print it from here. And just again, as I mentioned before, make sure that you're printing accordingly to either T1 paper, T1 e-file, or the T1 early business or T1 review. All right, so let's talk about slips. You can, let me just switch over to a FX. For the FX or printing slips, there's an option. Of course, you'd have to be in the FX module. And once you go under File, there's a Print Slip Setup. And this enables you to take control of the T3 slips and the FX slips. So you would have to go through the slips that you want to print off. So each one is indicated here. You would just have to select the tab for the slip that you'd like to set your settings for, and you can do your copies here, laser facsimile, which printer you want to set it to. Again, you have the setting to always use default Windows printer. If you prefer to change it, then you have the option down here to select your printer in accordance to your copy type. Then your print set, of course, you have paper filing and magnetic media. Those are the only two choices you have. Just like the printer, you have the options to change your printer and also change your printer properties. Here, when you uncheck that, you can go to your properties and make your changes to the physical printer. You can set your margins, left, right, top, bottom. Your positioning, you have two options: center horizontally or size to fit page. And you also have your options to pause for form change. Okay, please read this note when you're doing FX. Items that are grayed out are no longer available in the FX module. So for example, PCL graphics pass-through, it's grayed out because it's no longer available in the FX module. Okay, so you have the option. Once you've made your change to your slips and you've picked your printers, you can just click on OK. All right. So now printing a slip. I'm going to, I believe I have a T4 available, so I'm just going to keep those settings. And now I want to print a slip. So I created a T4 with some data here, and I should be able to print this off. So let me go to File and Print Slip. I would select the print type. Of course, you'd have to select your print set. Two options: paper filing or magnetic media. Paper filing, print type. You have the option to select your slip. T4 is what I created. Slip sorting. You can go by name, none, social insurance number. It's just going to sort it accordingly to the columns. I'm just going to go by name, and I'll have the name and social insurance number. Okay. So if I want to print this off, I would definitely have to have this checked, and then the slip state filter. Was it an original? Was it amended? Was it a canceled? Or was it a blank one? So you'd have to select that, and then your copy types are indicated here. And if you just want to print off, say for example, just copy one, you have the option to just unselect the others, and then you can print. Okay. And that's printing slips. I wanted to go back to the T1 and mention, say for example, you just want to print off a form, and instead of going to File Print to print off the whole return, you just want to print off this page here. You have the option to use this print the current form or F12, or you can just right click and print the form from here, and that will print the form to your physical printer. Right. Let me just see if I had touch base on everything. So we talked about the form selection. We talked about the setup, making sure you're setting it up for each module in each year. Setting your default printer, whether you want to keep your default printer or you want to change your printer. You have the ability to change the properties of that printer, going to the categories and selecting the printer that is in accordance to that printer, setting your margins and your font scaling, being able to set your positioning and duplexing, whether it's fit to page or duplex using your printer or using your printer's duplex settings. You have your confirm auto font scale, so when you have your font scaling set, ProFile will ask you to confirm whether you'd like ProFile to make those adjustments. Showed you how to print the forms and the returns, and just showed you how to print just one form and printing slips in the FX module. So let me go into the questions here and see if there are any questions. Looks like I have, okay. Can't see the form selection window fully. Hopefully when we do the output of this recording, you'll be able to see the form selection. Let me bring up the next one, and that was for thank you for that, Swati. Yeah, hopefully when we do the show the recording online, you'll be able to see that form selection. I had brought it over. What is the print setup for? So for, looks like it's Hess. So the question is, what is the print setup for? So it's just setting your printer settings in according to your forms, your margins, where you would like your, for example, your T1 jacket to be printed at, or would you like your labels to be printed at, which printer you'd like to set that to, your letters, your labels, and your T7 DRA. And each module will be different, so you'll be able to set that accordingly. So hopefully that answered your question. What are the options? What are the options to print recto verso for a page? So I'm not sure what you mean by recto verso, but if we go to ProFile, I think you might mean, if you go to print setup, this flip pages. Let me go to the T1, okay, and file, print setup. So we have flip pages up. So that would enable you to, so you have the front page, and then when it goes to the back of the page, it's going to actually be reversed. So it's going to flip the page as if you're flipping the page up, and then it's going to print it accordingly. Yeah. Hopefully that's the what you mean by recto verso for a page. Next one is from Ikram. Can we fax a PDF tax return if computer connected with a printer? If you have the option to PDF, if you have the option to fax a return, then you can. But I would suggest for security reasons to maybe create it as a PDF and email it, using the PDF security where you create a password, just in case someone may, if they see the fax, then it may break that security, the security thing that you have with your customer. Okay, has a question. If you want to email an unused form, how can I do that? So you can create a, you could print out the form to say PDF, and so you could actually do like if you could, if we could refer back to that customized form column, you can do those unused forms here. Select it in your form selection, and then when you go to File, Print, or you can use Print Email PDF, you can print off that specific column for those unused forms, and then it'll create a PDF of that column, and then you can send that to your client if you want to email that. Okay. Let me just see how we're doing for time. It looks like we have a couple more minutes. I believe Patricia has a question about printing on both sides. So that would be your duplex setting. You can use, when you print, you can use duplex sets. So it will print on both sides. It'll duplex the sets. Or you could also set your print setup. So under print setup, you have the ability to use your printer's duplex setting. So this is a matter of preference. If you don't check this, then it will use ProFile. If you if you uncheck it, then it'll use ProFile. If you check it, then it will use your physical printer's settings for duplexing. Hess has another question. The used one. For the used one, you could do the same. You can create a, you could do a file PDF. So if you're sending this to a client, you can do an email PDF and create a PDF of your customized column. And then once you create and build that, ProFile will save it as a PDF, and then you can attach it and send it to your clients. I want to email all the used forms. Again, you can do that. So one of these columns will be for your client. So it may be the second column here, and you would be able to the forms that are activated will show up here. If there's additional forms, then go ahead and select those in here for you, Haas. Okay, I'll answer one more question for Ikram, and that is, I have ProFile on 2 computers. Do I have to make settings separately? Yes, you do. So I would go to each computer, and you can do the settings there for printing. There are ways of saving your settings, but that is under your options module, which sometimes is not applicable to printing. So you'll have to make those settings in each computer. Okay, so that's our last question for today. I'm going to, we have this recorded, so once we have our web page set to where we can upload our recorded webinars, they'll be available for you on the website. You can also go to our support website for some how-to videos, and that is in, if you go to profile.intuit.ca, there is, under the profile option, you'll see support, and you'll see some options there for some articles, some how-to videos, and some other information like the posting and alerts for the upcoming webinars that are coming up soon. Okay, so again, I just want to thank you for your time today. Hopefully I've covered most of the printing settings, and again, there's more material online on our support site in case you want to dig deeper on those settings. Again, I want to thank you again, and please, when you get the survey today, please take some time to fill that out. Let us know if there's some content that you want to learn more about, and we will cover that for you in the future webinars. Again, have a great day, and thank you very much.